Snowy peaks and open skies, northern winds whisper goodbyes. Dreams take root where the maples grow, a land of promise where rivers flow. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong. Lakes like mirrors, reflecting pride, from the Rockies to the ocean tide. Voices mingle in a tapestry, a world united in harmony. Welcome to the north, where the light shines so bright, chasing every dream beneath the stars tonight. Every step you take, a journey to belong, building futures here where hearts grow strong. Borders fade.
Welcome back, everyone, to another Canada Immigration Live Q&A. Just Alicia and I today. We're doing old school here. Igor's got the fancy overlays, and I'm going with the old school. So how are you doing, Alicia?
I'm doing well, Mark. It's definitely fall. There's that crispness in the air. The leaves are starting to turn.
I know, I was thinking to myself, where did the summer go? With everything that was going on this past summer, it seemed like it just slipped away. Now, you had an opportunity to get out and to go to a few places and see a few things, and you went all the way to the East Coast.
Yeah, as far east as you can get, actually. We went to Cape Spear, and we were actually standing on the furthest part of Eastern Canada and the very start of the Trans-Canada Trail, actually, which is fun. So we hike a lot of the Trans-Canada Trail. It was fun to kind of put your foot on ground zero, or I guess the maximum kilometers, depending on which way you're going.
Very cool. Well, I think sometimes we forget how awesome this country is. And sometimes we're so quick to go travel abroad, travel overseas, travel to different countries, when right here in this awesome country of ours are some unbelievable things to see. So, very cool. Well, Alicia, we are not seeing too much in terms of change. So, every day it seems like IRCC is further tightening the screws on the possibilities for people to be able to stay. I just reviewed the submission that CELA submitted on the whole adjudication of temporary resident applications, and just how aggressive they are in trying to refuse, whether it's temporary resident visas, TRVs, visitor visas, work permits, study permits, all with a desire to reduce the total number of temporary residents down to 5%. And in so doing, us as lawyers are not really appreciating the lack of due process. You know, the fact that immigration is not necessarily following, at least how we see it right now, basic principles of procedural fairness and how they're assessing applications and legitimately reviewing evidence and adequately turning their mind to the specific circumstances of individual applicants versus a very cursory, very casual review resulting in almost an AI-generated refusal. And I know they say everything's refused by a human. Well, that might be the case, but it's a simple click from the human, and most of the work is done on the front end by their triaging system, we'll call it. We'll try to give it the most benefit of the doubt. But these are really tough times, and I'm not seeing a lot of light on the horizon just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the small beams of light would be spousals. Those are still trucking along. So we have been doing more spousal sponsorship applications for people. The other thing that's still going on, the PNPs are still kind of trickling through, and so
Oh,
I do know, OINP is trickling along, AAIP is trickling along, but there are minefields. There are
yeah,
minefields.
let's look at trickle, Alicia. Okay. So you can see here, number of invitations issued, 228. So this was 2 days ago. This is our September 15th PNP draw. And boy, it is just a trickle. And
Yeah.
of course, the lowest score was 746, which meant one of the candidates had essentially 146 human capital points, which is pretty low. But at the same time, this is the world that we're in. And if we look at the previous rounds of invitations and we look back here, you can see this is 2 weeks. So we've got the 15th, and the previous one, September the 2nd, was also just micro. And the one before that was even less so,
Mm.
192, and before that 225. So these low numbers of draws are just a product of the fact there just is not space. Now we're midway through September. We have approximately a month and a half, maybe a little bit less, before the government has to once again announce their annual levels plans for 2026, 2027, and 2028. We saw that although their plans in 2024 called for a larger number of uh, basically allocations up to almost 500, they backed off. They dropped it off by over 100,000. Now, the economic immigration, they shifted around. So the in Canada candidates and the strategic occupations, those two categories actually kind of held their own. But the PNPs really took a hit. So I know lots of people are asking, what does the future hold? What are they going to do? Like, what do you think, Alicia? What do you think they're actually going to do with the nominations? Do you think that they will kind of reverse course a little bit? You remember the rhetoric, not rhetoric, this notification that they're giving more powers to the provinces. Don't be deceived, you guys, by those reports that the provinces, just because they have more power allegedly with selection, that it means their numbers are going to be affected. But what are your thoughts, Alicia? If we pull up this lovely little crystal ball here, what do you
If I
think
have
is
to
here? I'll get it
rub
there.
the
There it
crystal
is.
ball,
There it is.
I'm thinking that it's going to stay about the same. I think
Mm.
the federal government will just maintain control because they have a greater ability to manage immigration as a whole that way. So they can just kind of keep things streamlined, they can keep things trucking along, and they just have more control if there are not huge numbers of PNP allocations and nominations. And right now, the political will is that it seems there's a lot of backlash against immigration. And so people are wanting to make sure that Canadians have jobs first. They want to make sure that there's Canadian housing. They want to make sure that there's healthcare. And it's important to keep in mind that, you know, um, it's not a zero sum game. There are lots of ways that immigration is infusing innovation and economic opportunities. And it's interesting, Mark. I talk to a lot of clients who really are highly educated, often who are English speakers, many Americans who are trying to get a start in Canada. And right now, because of the point system, it's actually really hard for them unless they speak French.
And the reality is, I was attending our local immigration partnership. We were revamping our LIP here in Lethbridge just yesterday. We spent the whole day going through what our strategic plan was, what we're going to do, because funding was cut a little bit to our program, and we had to reduce what we had expected that we might be able to accomplish this year. And one of the working groups that we created was a language group. And as I think some people know here in Lethbridge, if you are in Lethbridge and you know of someone that's looking for assistance with their English language, my wife and I are principals of a little language school we call the Lethbridge English Support Network. That is a free language class. And it's kind of, the initial levels, I'd say leading up to about a CLB5, that kind of a level of English that's completely free to help people just improve. But in those discussions, and I'm also on the employer working group, the foreign worker working group, the one piece of advice I had for them is that if they had a choice between having their workers study English, and these are the temporary foreign workers, study English or study French, they would be far better off studying French than English if they were hoping to be able to stay here permanently. And well, this golden age of francophone immigration, I've been talking about this for a number of years now, and it's not going to change. It's not reversing. And so people have to recognize this is a reality, and it's one piece of the puzzle when you're trying to solve your permanent resident puzzle on an individual basis. And I think everybody is very very well aware of that now.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. One thing I do want to give one shout out to Alicia before we get to some questions is this most recent blog post. And we just finished recording another Canadian Immigration Podcast episode 171. We've had a little bit of a hiatus with that, but this is all about spousal sponsorships, okay? And then the open work permits that are available for some spouses and dependent children. And this in and of itself is somewhat of a landmine, you guys. And so Alicia wrote this awesome blog post, and we've followed it up with a really neat little podcast episode where we pulled out a whole bunch of things out of this blog post, as well as adding a whole bunch of other information. And we encourage you to go slide over to the podcast to watch that or to listen to it. Well, you can watch it here. It'll be released here on the website. But if you go to our Holthe Law website here, you'll see that right up at the top, we've got blog and resources. And then here we have the podcast that's right here. So when you click on podcast, it takes you to here, and you can listen on Apple Podcast or Spotify. And like I said, our episode, if we just go to Apple Podcast, just as a reference, you'll see here that episode 170, we've got, it's been a little while since we last released one. We've been really hitting our business immigration series and our Time's Up series really hard. But this time we decided to shift and just, transition to a topic that was super timely, which was these spousal sponsorships. And when you're trying to maintain your status and your ability to work, boy, like I said, there are so many ways things can fall off the rails for sure. For sure. Yeah. All right. Well, Alicia, let's dive in and let's maybe see if we can get some questions from our viewers here. And we'll pull up a few here. So Iman says, for the Alberta Opportunity Stream now conducted on September 4th, the minimum score is 56. Did this draw include all work permits types, including postgrad work permit? So this is the most, I think there was one just that we had just the other day here, just recently, that was a tech draw. But Alicia, the September 4th one, I don't know if you've got that one. We could pull it up and take a look here.
Hold up. It was actually AOS. So
AOS.
You're restricted to AOS.
Okay. So, AOS, if you understand if you're a postgrad work permit holder and you're eligible for the Alberta Opportunity Stream, then you would be in consideration for that. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Another comment, Alicia?
I was just going to say, when you're looking at AAIP, be super careful. I've had a number of consults with people recently on AAIP because they had actually filed that they wanted to be considered under express entry, sometimes accelerated tech under express entry, and they didn't get drawn under that. They got drawn under AOS instead, and now they actually didn't qualify for AOS because they didn't realize that they had to have had, if they were on a PGWP, they had to actually have 6 months of work experience in that knock for period of time within the 18 months. And so sometimes you get drawn under a category you're not expecting, and you might actually have to decline your notification of interest because you don't qualify. So go back, take a look at all the AOS eligibility factors, and make sure before you accept and move forward with your application that you meet minimum eligibility.
Okay, Keys says, after receiving notification of interest, how long do we have to submit every documents? And if we miss submitting any documents, is it possible to send it later? So Key, I'm not sure. Notification of interest is probably a province, but each province have different rules and different requirements. So I'm not sure if we can hit this one specifically. But for Alberta, per se, if we receive a notification of interest, The
15
response time,
days.
Alicia?
Yeah, you've got 15 days from the day that they send that notification of interest. And I always err on the side of caution. And if you, sometimes people are getting this at wonky times or on weekends or whatever, doesn't matter. You just make sure you count your 15 days. Err on the side of going too early rather than too late, because if you're outside of your window, you're going to lose your ability to file an application. So go early rather than late.
All right. This question is from Anthony. He says, I'm on maintained status as a dependent under my spouse's high wage LMIA application. Just submitted my express entry PR application and received AOR as well. Can I submit a bridging open work permit now?
Maintain status as a
It
dependent.
says, or applying for a bridging open work permit will make my initial application invalid. So going back here, basically, I'm assuming he submitted a work permit as a dependent, probably the spousal open work permit, under his spouse's high wage. Now, the issue, Anthony, here is, are you even eligible? And we, once again, within our blog post that we have on our website, if we slide over here, Igor did one on spousal sponsorships, the spousal open work permits just a while back. Let's see if we can find right here. And so
Yeah.
remember, just because your LMIA is a high wage one, doesn't mean that you're eligible for a spousal open work permit. And when we go through that process, you can see if it's a tier 0 or 1, then yes, you can apply. But if you're tier 2 or 3, you have to fit under one of these occupations, these eligible occupations. Your principal spouse has to when they're working.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Alicia, if you have any thoughts for Anthony right now.
The other thing, Anthony, I also wrote a blog article on bridging open work permits versus bridging closed work permits. And so take a look at that as well, because there's also a number of places where people can kind of run afoul of the rules and exactly how you file documents properly and are you eligible for the category that you're applying for. So take a look at our blog and go to the bridging open work permits versus bridging closed work permits. Take a read of that as well if you are looking at doing a bridging, you have to meet all the program requirements.
One thing I'm going to just show you as I'm on our podcast, our blog post here, there is right at the top when you're going to our immigration blog, there is a search bar right here. So depending upon the topic, you can search up, basically any title. It's pretty good now. Actually, the other one we had wasn't as good, but this one is pretty good. So I have questions about anything. So if you're a student, you can just type in student, and then it will pull up any of the blog posts that like this awesome one, top 10 reasons study permits are refused. Can students be working after the end of studies? So definitely remember that we have this awesome blog resource for you as well. All right, next on our list here, we've got Nash. I wonder if Nash is asking for a friend. Nash, I'm pretty sure you're a permanent resident now. Okay, if nominated by Alberta, can I physically reside, rent in Alberta, but work remotely for an employer based outside the province? Would that be seen as violating the intent to reside requirement? Well, I can jump in on this one, Alicia. Nash, if you're living in Alberta, like you actually live here, you don't just rent a place and then you're living somewhere else. That's never ever going to be an issue. Ultimately, once you become a permanent resident, the charter rights come into play, the freedom of mobility. And the interesting thing is, Alicia, at this stage, I haven't seen anyone who's had their permanent residence stripped when they were in the province physically, when they became a permanent resident through a PNP, and then moved shortly after. I haven't at this stage seen that, but it all comes down to whether or not they feel you genuinely intended to live in that province at the time in which you became a permanent resident. So, and it always leaves the door open for immigration to take a more harsher approach. Now, Alicia, we know there's some examples recently where, some individuals have run into problems, and because of how things were structured and what was done, and to the point where IRCC has revoked PR for some people. And so you have to make sure that what you're doing is genuine. Simple as that.
Well, And timing matters, Mark. I think when you answered that question, you assumed that that person had already received their PR. But
Mm,
Nash, if you're talking about somebody who got a nomination but hasn't received PR, and now you're doing a bunch of things, changing your work situation,
good point.
and maybe it was an employer-sponsored situation where you needed those job offer points, timing matters. So if you don't yet have your PR, and let's say you just have a nomination and you might have filed and you had a worker EOI that required job offer points, and now you've switched employers and you're no longer working for an employer in Alberta, that can totally tank your nomination. So timing matters.
All right. Next question's from Marco. He says, "Hi all, to prove foreign work experience in CEC, do we need to provide bank statements? If so, is it okay to upload the original Spanish and some translations like the first month's and last month's? I have 30 pages." Yeah, I get it, Marco. It can be really expensive to do that. But man, once again, I just wonder, boy, it sure would be nice if there was like this DIY course that people could use to help them navigate their way through Express Entry. That would be pretty amazing. In the
So
description
Marco, we
here,
have a course.
yes, we do. Yeah. So this course is we cover all of these things in here, and when you log in right here, you'll see that we have a couple different options. Igor is still working on this Canadian citizenship one, but we have a TRV course and our Express Entry Accelerator and Masterclass. Now, yesterday I had a conflict, so I'm actually pushing the Masterclass, which normally would have been yesterday, to next Tuesday. So anyone who subscribes right now will get access to join us in this masterclass coming up. And the beautiful thing about this course here, our accelerator course, is that it allows you to come back as many times as you want to attend the masterclass. And you have access to the course for life and any updates. And there are a lot of updates to the Express Entry course. And I'll just show you, because I keep the legacy ones. And people think, oh, Mark just changes a few videos. No, I had one way before 2019. I think this was the third version, 2019. But I've redone this Express Entry course a number of times. And the accelerator was done at the beginning of last year. And we're actually in the process of updating it and adding some cool new features to it and re-releasing it. So we'll have a 2026 that's going to be launched. But anyone who subscribes to it now will have full access to it, as well as any future updates. So yes, now with that being said, Alicia, let's talk about proving foreign work experience and what role do bank statements play?
Yeah, and so Marco, you normally don't want to have to rely on the bank statements. You want to make sure that you are complying with exactly what IRCC has asked for in respect to your proof of foreign work experience. And so take a look. IRCC has a completeness check. And so they have a little blurb about what they want to see when they are assessing your foreign work. And so it's going to be a letter from your employer. It needs to be on letterhead of your employer. It needs to have your name, your job duties, basically your full details about your wage, your hours of work, benefits received. And when they talk about those job duties have to align with the proper knock. So it's really important that you talk to your employer and you guys are on the same page about what kind of knock you're claiming and what kind of knock the employer thought that you completed at your place of employment. That all has to be signed. It has to have the address and the location where you were working. It has to have their legal name, their operating name, their company, general information in terms of address, in terms of the contact information. And then it has to be signed by a direct supervisor or HR manager. And that person has to give all their direct contact details as well. And so that is the key piece of evidence that IRCC is using to assess foreign work experience. In addition to which, it is possible to provide pay statements. And so normally payroll documents are more important than bank statements. I understand, of course, it depends on the country, and sometimes different companies don't have formal payroll. Hopefully they do, because that's stronger evidence. If you have to go all the way to proving bank statements, it's a little bit less strong in terms of evidence. So you definitely want to have something that's showing what are your job duties, what knock, and are you able to establish that you were doing that job, not just that you were getting paid. So there's a number of factors you've got to look at when you are talking about languages or documents that are in a language other than English, you need to provide the original exactly as it is, a color copy of that, in addition to a certified translation. And so hopefully you can try to get the key documents, and you only have to do certified translations of the key documents. If you can get that really watertight employer letter and then a few pay statements, normally we would recommend those instead of bank statements. So look at the pay statements, pick some from the beginning, the middle, and the end of your period of employment, and get all of that properly translated. They will not look at anything that is in Spanish because they only look at documents in English or French.
All right. So we've got a question here. This is from Karen. And Karen says, "Hey, Mark, we recently received a nomination through the ONP foreign worker stream. At the federal stage of the application, is the spouse required to submit CELPIP results?" And I just wanted to quickly jump in here just to show you. Let's see here. It doesn't matter what I put in here. Yes. And
while Mark pulls that up, so Karen, the interesting thing is that normally you're only going to have to upload documents to prove you're meeting eligibility for the OINP category under which you were selected. So if you're looking at OINP foreign worker stream, yeah, it's non-express entry, so you're going to have to eventually file a PR portal if you get your nomination. You want to make sure that you maintain all the worker EOI points that you had when you submitted your OINP application until you got your nomination, all the way, hopefully, until you get your PR. So when they're looking at the EOI scoring factors, this is where you're going to make sure that you can prove everything that you said you had, and you want to maintain that the entire time. So make sure you're meeting all the provincial requirements, and then when you go to the federal requirements, there shouldn't be new or additional information that they're requesting over and above what you had to do to qualify for permanent residence under the OINP stream. But you can take a look at the document checklist, and I think that's what Mark is
that's what
trying
I'm
to
pulling
pull
up. Yeah. I actually decided to just jump right into the actual PR portal here. So when you're in the portal, and this is for the PNP, the thing that drives the ship is the document checklist. So let's see if I can flip this over now. Let's see. Let me see. Oh, hooray. Okay. So here's our document checklist. And you'll see that actually the number of documentation, like the amount of documents that are required at this stage for a PNP non-express entry are really not a ton. So a lot of the assessment of your work experience and those kinds of things, your human capital, is already done at the PNP level. But if we go down through here and we look, you'll see here it has a list of the forms, supplementary information. Those are all the forms that are required. Some are online, some are PDF. Then it asks for travel documents and passports, confirmation of nomination. Once, Alicia, I had someone who got an application refused that came to me after because they uploaded the Alberta nomination, but that was locked. So Alberta loves to send the nomination and then the code to unlock the PDF in a separate email. So then you open it up and then you need the passcode. Well, they just uploaded the locked secured nomination and IRCC sent it back. So just a point there for anyone who gets a nomination from a province, if it's locked and password protected, make sure that you print it off and rescan it back in and flatten it out. Okay, so identity civil status documents, police certificates and clearances, photo requirements, fee payment. So what are we missing from this lovely
There's no spousal
permanent
language
residence?
requirements.
There we go. So we went the long route, but the reality is, you guys, when you're going through this process, and we'll pull up Karen's question again, the reality is it's just a matter of very carefully and meticulously looking at the checklist. And you often as well need to read the fine point. Sometimes I find, Alicia, if we go back here, actually, I'm going to flip back to this screen here. Sometimes I find when people are going through here, they won't pay close attention to some of the headings underneath. So they'll just look at birth certificates here, and they won't see that marriage certificates are also listed here, or divorce. You have to carefully read through everything here to make sure that you're not missing something. Children's birth certificates, all of these things, always make sure that you read both and all of the sections within here. Or people will just upload their photos and then they won't realize that there's something more that needs to be on the photo. The back has to have the name and date of birth of the person who appears in the photo. Now this, Alicia, I don't get. I truly don't get why they have this anymore. This whole requirement for writing on the back is from a world where officers had stacks of paper applications on their desk. They go to pick something up over here, and then they accidentally bump something with their elbow and knock their file on the floor, and then the pictures go on the floor. Okay, I know from experience, okay? And then you're picking up the photos and you somehow got two applications mixed, or better yet, you've got an application with multiple siblings and they look quite a bit alike and you can't tell which photo is for which application. And so that's why they would do that. But in a digital world where things are uploaded digitally, I don't get what the point is of writing on the back of one of those photos and then scanning and upload. It's an example of tradition. Tradition. This is how we've always done it. We don't really pay attention to why we did it or what the reason for creating it in the first place was, but that is kind of the world that we're in right now. So yeah, so just be careful, you guys. Be really careful.
And it does really depend on the checklist and whether you're filing online or not online, because in some of the portals, it actually now, when you do a citizenship application, there's different online rules and they don't require the back of the photo. But if you file a paper application, you definitely need it on there. So
yeah, like Express Entry doesn't require that on the back of their photo, but the PNP, through the PR portal does. And it's interesting too, Alicia, you go through all of these hoops with the IRCC secure account, two-factor authentication, password, and then you can, then once you've answered the question right, then you can go in. And with the PR portal, it's just an email and a password, and that's it. And the PR portal was created after the IRCC secure account. So anyways, I've stopped trying to understand you guys. I've stopped trying to make sense of it all. Okay. Harpreet says, I submitted my CEC profile 5th of April, biometrics and medical done, but eligibility and background check is still in progress. How much time it's going to take? And tractor got updated 3 times. I think the tracker is what he's meant there, but I like that tractor. Oh, I miss driving the tractor on the farm. Yes. So, so what do you think, Alicia? There it is.
So Harpreet, I think you mean when you say CEC profile, well, there we go. When you
You can
say
rub both
CEC
sides.
profile, I think you mean you submitted a full EAPR if you've done biometrics and medicals and eligibility and background checks. So I'm assuming you submitted a complete application. There's still about a 6-month processing time standard for express entry applications, and April, May, June, July, August, September, you're still within the 5 months. And so I don't put much stock in the tracker. I just, I've had clients where nothing happened in the tracker and then they got the email saying, congratulations, you're going to be approved. And then the tracker got updated. So, if you're still within that processing standard, I think you're okay, unless you think that there's some reason that a document got missed or there's some additional request for information.
You bet. I'm just going to give a shout out here to Amit, who connected in on X. Good to see you, Amit. Excuse me. It's nice to see that it's reaching all the platforms this morning. That's great. Ruel says, hey, Mark and Alicia, good morning. And looks like we just finished going through all the very first comments that were posted here. So we definitely are going to do our best, guys, to get to as many as we can. If you are new to this live Q&A, which, well, I guess if you're new to YouTube, this might be something that you're seeing for the first time. But if you've had an interest in Canadian immigration, I'm sure you've been aware of our live Q&A, which happens every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. But those of you who are, we'd love to hear where you are tuning in from. So if you haven't done so, stick that in the comments and we'll give you a shout out. So good morning to you, Ruel. Great to have you here with us. Okay, let's brighten things up. A question from Sunshine Mac. Hi, hello, Alicia and Mark. Applied under the Alberta Advantage Rural Renewal Stream with 6 community points, but got invited under AOS. My question is, do I still submit my community endorsement with AOS? Thanks in advance. Perfect one, Alicia.
Mm-hmm. And this is similar to the OINP question, right? And so anything that you relied on for points, I would say make sure that you upload in that application. And the problem, Sunshine Mac, is that if you got invited under AOS and that points cutoff required you to have those rural renewal stream designation letters, then yeah, include it, because if your points total is going to fall below what the cutoff was for that notification of interest round, you don't want to be in a situation where you haven't already proven everything that you relied on for points. So yes, if you got an invitation or a notification of interest to go under AOS, you meet all the program requirements for AOS, then you're also going to want to prove the points that you relied on to get into that draw.
Hmm. Here's an interesting one from DocSheet. He says, and this is the internet. This is social media. This is people liking to get clicks. This is people who claim that they've got an inside road to what the government is going to do. Well, I can tell you from the days that even when I served as national chair over the Canadian Bar Association's immigration section, I did not have an inside track on what the government was actually going to do with the annual levels plans. You bet people are speculating. They're pulling up their crystal ball and they're just rubbing the heck out of that crystal ball like this, rub, and that's fun. It's kind of entertaining to speculate. But I don't know if your first premise is 100% true, but hey, if it is, well, great. We'll address it. But here's what DocSheet is asking. He's saying in 2026, so he's projecting PNP quotas will be restored. Okay, so that's what he said. They'll be restored. And total overall PR quotas will be reduced, from which category will reduction take place. So he says there's going to be an increase. So you're going to move them back to PR from where they were taken, a lot of them. So which category is it going to get pulled from? Is it the in Canada? Is it strategic, occupations, the strategic industries? This is a hard one, DocSheet, because I don't know. One thing's for sure, they are going to focus on strategic, and even within the strategic, CEC are being captured. But the PNPs, I've advocated for that, and I'd love to see that, DocSheet. I'd love to see them return them from to the PNPs. But as far as which particular group, or whether they create an entirely new one, right? It's possible. They shifted them when they moved from 2024 to 2025. They actually changed from the high, what do they call them? The federal high skill, I think is what they kind of referred to it as. And then they created the in Canada and the strategic kind of categories within the annual levels plan. So next year, actually, they could create a whole new one, change it up again. He said, will education, express entry, and CEC continue in 2026 and expected cutoff? I love this. Like, this is all magical crystal ball stuff, right? All magical. To be honest, right now, DocSheet, there was a time when I felt pretty confident about predicting what was going to happen. But I just don't. I don't feel as confident anymore. I know Alicia knows everything. She just doesn't want to show me up because she has a clear vision of exactly where our Liberal government is going to go with their levels planning and everything. But for me, I'm just not sure. Education, I was shocked to see it on there in the first place. So I'll be honest, I can't see education continuing. CEC, absolutely 100%. I see that continuing. There's just so many people. That's a massive priority for the government. In terms of the cutoffs, those numbers are not coming down anytime soon. The only way the numbers are coming down is if they significantly increase the numbers of invitations in each round. So those are my thoughts, Alicia. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think DocSheet, I think it's on your point number one, I don't think there's any point in speculating until we get the levels plan for 2026. I just think we just wait a month and we'll see. For education, I just pulled it up. We literally had one education category specific round of invitations. 1,000 people got in and the CRS was 479. That happened in May 1st, 2025. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mark. I don't think they're going to keep education, but they will tell us next year what the category specific rounds will be, like what the categories will be. And 100%, I agree with you. CEC is kind of the bedrock of express entry. If they got rid of that, I would bowl me over with a feather.
Yes. All right. Tanya says, concerning the changes in IRCC process, the medical report, should we upload it in our profile or the doctor recommended should send it? Okay. Tanya, once again, this is a perfect reason why we have this guy right here, the accelerator. And I'm actually going to change this so I can pull this up properly. Google right there. Okay. So in our course here, one of the things that we have that we've isolated is within all of these modules, you can see there's over 70 lessons right now that work through all of the different categories. Module 2, Module 3 is all about how you complete your profile. And then the stage that you're at is after, when you get your ITA, setting up your EAPR. And my favorite section of this whole course is the mastering your document section. And in here, we have a section on immigration medicals. And one thing we have in here, which we do in a lot of these document sections, is sample documents. So let's see if I can pull this one up. I'm not sure if I can see it. Oh, it looks like here. Okay. So this is just an example. Now there's more modern ones. This is I'll probably update this and put this in. So this was back from 2020. But this essentially, what this is the e-medical information sheet. And that e-medical information sheet, this is the one that the doctor will give you. And it's this one that you are going to upload. It's usually no more than 2 pages. So, you'll see it'll have the results of tests and things like that. And so, I'll get a new one and update into here. But yeah, this is what you're going to be updating. You're going to be using that. That's what you need to include. And this is a perfect example too of a situation where if you thought, well, I don't actually need to upload it because my doctor will, they'll send it electronically, the results to, NHQ headquarters in Ottawa, and then not do anything more. Well, they would refuse your application as being incomplete if you didn't include it. So short answer, after a long explanation, is the e-medical information sheet. So you should upload it. All right. Next question. Oh, Vanessa. Let's see. What has she got here? Vanessa says, I made mistake during my medicals. I used the old passport instead of the new one, as I did when creating my profile. Please, how can I modify the passport number since the result's been submitted? Alicia,
So,
help me with this one.
yeah, so Vanessa, hopefully that the passport should not matter as long as you filed your application correctly and you did the medicals and you have the updated current passport when you submitted your PR application. That's what is important. But if you used your old passport number on your medical exam, it shouldn't invalidate your medical as long as you properly did your medical when you needed to do it and you submitted that result, depending on when the policy change was implemented. So if you needed to have submitted your upfront medical, make sure that you did. If there was just the only problem was that it referred to your old passport, that should not invalidate your medical exam.
No, it doesn't. One thing as a precaution, because once again, we just can't leave anything to the imagination of an officer. You need to lock everything down. Letters of explanation are your protection. So in your case, if there was anything, people say all the time, oh, I got my police clearance certificate, but it was with my other passport. Now I have a new passport, or in your case, medicals. They were issued with the old passport, and then my application is being submitted with my new passport. Well, if you're concerned, then include a copy of your old passport data page. You don't need to include the whole thing. It's just your current travel document or passport that has stamped pages or marked pages, and your data page. You're going to include that, but I would include a copy of your old one. And then, just like we have in the course here, lesson 59 is all about letters of explanation. And this teaches, as I go through here, we've got sample documents for how we structure our LOEs so that an officer, just makes it as easy as possible for the officer to understand. But the letters of explanation, they do exactly what you've explained here. They help an officer to understand if there is something that doesn't line up perfectly. And yes, they scrub through everything. Nothing is getting past them anymore because they've got AI helping them. So just be careful. All right. Okay, I think we've got one from Ruel. We'll end with this one for Ruel, and then we'll get some other people. In the AOS application, do we need to upload the dependent's passport in the passport section or just mine? Bachelor, 5 years, program, ECA, 4 years, finished it, 4.5 years, what to put in college. Okay, so this right here, I'm going to ring this bell. Oh, it's a quiet bell. Let's get some volume on our bell here. There we go. So Ruel, these are all very specific questions that really need you to book a consult so that we can look at things and we can examine things carefully. When it comes to uploading, any documentation, you're simply following the instructions that are there. But Alicia, I don't know if you have any thoughts specifically on dependent passports and that, because we don't really know. I'm assuming you have your notification of interest. You're filing, Ruel, your AOS application to the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program. But yeah, as far as uploading dependents' passports and things like that, or just yours,
It's all in the
yeah,
document checklist.
yeah,
You
I
gotta
would,
follow it.
yeah, I would, yeah, I don't know what to say other than when you're asking specific questions about what I should do, I would book a consultation. Well, let's see here. We're all
Yeah, and
about,
the other thing, Ruel, especially with Alberta, there are all sorts of landmines with respect to your highest level of education points and then also your highest level of education in Canada or Alberta points. And so
Mhm.
when you're asking things about the bachelor's and you're asking how long the program was and the ECA, um, that can all matter because it can affect your eligibility for your worker EOI points. So the reason that Mark and I and Igor do the live stream is to try to get really high quality immigration information out. What we do not do is we do not provide specific legal advice as part of this live stream because it's not professional, because it would not do your question justice, and we cannot get enough information in 3 little lines of text in order to give you proper legal advice. It would be unprofessional and against our obligations. And so we are happy to talk with you. We would request that you reach out, book a consult. So you can go to our Holthe Immigration Law. And I will spell that because the funny thing is with AI, I've often seen our law firm Healthy Law,
Oh, nice.
Halthy. It's not, it's Holthe. So Holthe Law. If you go to holthelaw.com, you can book a consult and then we can actually go through your situation, take a look at everything, because sometimes people have questions and the real problem is not the question that they have. And so we can normally go through and ask them a number of things and drill down and figure out something that they didn't even realize was a problem that needs
Yeah.
to get addressed.
Yeah. So when it comes to dependents here, and we're all about trying to help as well, preparing your documents, this section right here, you'll see that it says, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit so everybody can see. Boom. Okay, I'll move this. It says, except where noted, documents are to be provided for you, the candidate. Only provide documents for family members when it states family member documents are required. And so it's a simple matter as if it specifically states that there is that you need to provide something for your family, then you include it. But if you look here, for example, at passports, it says upload only the personal information page and any pages showing the expiry and renewal dates on your passport. There's nothing here about dependents. Okay, language assessment, same story. Work permit. So just read it. Be very careful. And this is another good thing too, Alicia. See, it says upload your current Alberta work permit, and then at the bottom, if you're not paying attention, upload all your past Canadian work permits if applicable. So Alicia and I we're stickler for details because there is no room, there's no margin for error. They will look for every opportunity they can to refuse your application. So you have to be careful. Okay, let's see if we can get this, make some sense of Arjit here. So Arjit says, can you explain what you understood from the minister's transition binder when it comes to the CEC numbers and what it means for 2025 draws? Wasn't answered last week, hopefully this time. Yeah, Arjit, we don't have we don't have the ability to dive into Minister Diab's mind as to what they're planning to do. Even when it comes to the CEC numbers, We know that they are going to make shifts because the provinces have pushed back. To what extent, we don't know. To the impact that it's going to have on overall economic numbers, we don't know. This is a decision from cabinet. They have to make those ultimate determinations of where their focus is. But one thing we know is that, well, I guess no thanks to Alicia and I and immigration lawyers out there, they're not being as successful getting people out of the country, I think, as they expected. There are definitely people leaving, but to get down to those 5% temporary resident numbers and not expanding the permanent resident process to keep it at, I think it was projected for 500,000 at one time, to reduce it down to the 395 or whatever it is, I think ultimately they've got some tough decisions to make. And I don't have that intel. So I don't know if you have any extra thoughts on this, Alicia. It's really speculating. Okay. AC and CA says, hi, Mark and Alicia. If an individual has duplicate paper work permit applications, okay, what have we got going on here, AC? Does the second application become invalid upon approval of the first application? Same receipt used for fees. Oh boy. This right here, not even going to touch this. This is a disaster, AC. I can't even begin to try to explain what might happen. Yeah, this is a consult, my friend. Yeah, I'm directing you to slide over to our page right here. And then all you have to do is click on speak to a lawyer or click up here, speak to a lawyer. It will take you to our page here, and you can choose who you want to book a consult with and work your magic. But yeah, this is not, yeah, I don't have
Most
much
people
to add
can't
on that one.
file paper applications, right? There's only in really rare circumstances that they'll even allow you to file a paper application. It normally is going to be pretty complex. If you have multiple applications and you use the same fee receipt, they're only going to link it to, it's only one application. And so this becomes super complicated. It doesn't sound like a good situation.
Yeah. I'll jump over here to Amit on X. He says, Mark, can you please guide about the pathways for an Indian doctor, MS surgeon to come and work in Canada? Well, Amit, there are possibilities. We actually have, we've had lots of interaction with physicians all over the world who are looking to come. And the best place to start, my friend, is just to book a consult. And if you go into the description, you can find it. And as Alicia indicated here, when you're booking your consultation, this is right at holthelaw.com. And you can see the name up here, Holthe, Holthe. And you can connect in and book a consult. And then we can go through everything. Because at the end of the day, Amit, each of these are specific to you and your background and your qualifications. And so we definitely would want more time to assess.
Yeah, and the one thing that I would say, Amit, is that, of course, to be a doctor, it's a regulated occupation in every province and territory in Canada. And so one of the first things that you need to do is take a look at where you think you would be living in Canada and talk to the College of Physicians and Surgeons in that province, because there is a recognition validation of your credentials and your work experience that has to happen before you can be registered with the college in order to be able to actually practice as a doctor. And so practically, that's one of the things that you'll want to take a look at. We can definitely talk to you about doing a points analysis. Are you hitting that eligibility under a federal skilled worker selection points in order to be able to put a profile in if you don't have any previous work experience in Canada?
Vanessa says, I submitted my express entry profile while being in Cameroon, but traveled to Korea 2 days after receiving the ITA, then did my medicals there. Please, is there any problem in the change of location? Well, as long as it's done, the medical with a panel physician, a designated panel physician for immigration purposes, you're just uploading it. So if you get your ITA and you're submitting your EAPR, it doesn't matter where the medical was done as long as it was done by an authorized physician. Yeah.
The only thing I'd add to that, Vanessa, is if you are going to be traveling for some time, you might need to update IRCC with your actual new address, right? So if you're going to be traveling for months, then make sure that you update them with your physical address so you can go in and update your address in that specific web form.
Yeah. Sager, I'm going to ring this for you too. Hey, Mark and Alicia, score 520, knock 21 221. Work permit expires February. What can I do here? Book a consult, my friend. Then we can dive into that a lot deeper. Okay, let's see here. Okay, yeah, Kyla says, hey, how's the startup visa versus BC entrepreneur base now? Planning to apply to both and see which one goes through first. All I can say, Kyla, is good luck. It's not files that we're taking right now. SUV is basically shut down. The BC
53 months.
entrepreneur, yeah,
53 months
53
processing
months to process an SUV. And BC entrepreneur, it's basically ground to a halt as well. So sad.
Reach out, book a consult. There might be other things that you can apply.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, John's asking more speculation, which we can't really answer. Will OINP files be returned to human capital stream? Yeah, I don't have any intel on that. Chow says, hey guys, thanks for the good work. We recently saw additional PNP invites being granted to Ontario and Alberta. Crystal ball question, do you expect that to roll out to other provinces too? Well, I know that they are going to, because there's been a lot of discussion amongst the provinces. So usually what they do for one, they do for all. I would expect that the other provinces, if Alberta of all provinces is getting a few, I can expect that the other provinces are probably going to follow suit as well. So, and that's positive news. I did a, let's see here, I think you guys are familiar with this one. I can't remember which episode it was, but this CBC, The House, Alicia, you appeared briefly on this a while back. I think did you go in person? I can't remember.
It was after the levels plan, so it was
Yeah.
just a commentary, and then Mark Miller was responding. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And so for this one, I did an interview with Ms. Cullen here on the radio component, the radio show. It was in conjunction to Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party. His comments that the temporary foreign worker program should be scrapped, and so it's interesting to see the politics at play when it comes to immigration. And without a doubt, when you're looking at the levels plans, the last question Catherine Cullen asked me, which didn't make it on the radio, at least in the podcast, was if you could pick one thing to advise, the government to do to make things better, what would you do? And I already had that answer queued up well before she ever asked me to even interview with her. And for me, it's allocating more economic immigration to the provinces, letting them decide what we should do with the permanent resident applications that are under, at least the economic streams. Let the feds deal with the family class and the humanitarian and refugee programs and doing the final background security screening for the PNPs, but expand, not restrict. That would have been my wish. And, sure, I think in an ideal fit, maybe 75% to the provinces of the total economic PR quota and 25% to the federal government, which would mean programs like the Atlantic Immigration Program, and those programs would fall under the 25% of the federal government. But I think the provinces are in the best position to decide what their labor needs are than compared to the federal government. But it's politics, so you
That's
yeah.
super interesting, Mark, because I actually, from a policy standpoint, I'm worried about the fact that people abuse the system, right? They go to the province that has the most lenient policy, and then they jump ship as soon as they've done their time, and then they go to a
Yeah.
different province. And so I
Yeah.
think that's the problem with having really specific streams and really specific locations, is that it's ripe for abuse, especially like even under things like the rural renewal program in various provinces, where you have some municipalities who are really good at screening and they do their due diligence and they look at which employers are doing things properly, but then you have others who are not doing such a good job. And so we have mobility rights, right? We have the ability to go from province to province. And so this is why I think it does make sense to keep human capital under express entry and not get super niche and not have all these tiny little categories that are skewing the points in certain ways.
Yeah. And that's the balance. Like this is where Alicia and I we have different kind of views on things. I agree, Alicia, for sure. I guess in my mind, people when they come through, it depends on what we're looking for, I guess. If someone is coming through and they're going through a program for the purposes of a PNP to hit a certain occupation that's in demand, and then after they get it, they don't stay there and actually satisfy that demand of the province, I totally get it. And then you've got people who speak French and their human capital super low, and they can, they could live anywhere. And it's, I don't know what the right solution is. I guess for my mind, I just feel like I look at Alberta, I look at all of the foreign workers that are actually living here. And for sure, there's some people that parachute in, are only here for a while and then they're gone right after. But provinces could easily say, well, those of you who've been here for 2+ years will entertain you, or 3, right? So you've got some skin in the game. Or those who've gone to school are going to dominate the ranks of who we're going to use these nominations for, and they're going to stay put here. But yeah, I just think it's, I just wish there was a little bit more even balance and there was less politics involved with it, I guess, because it was really trending in a really nice direction as far as I could tell. Now, remember, the federal government, with a lot of their special measures, has created a large worker base through the special measures for Ukraine and Hong Kong and Iran, and those individuals are kind of choosing where they want to live. And now those provinces are trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we transition these people to permanent residence when we don't have as many spots anymore? And generally speaking, they're brought here not for their human capital, but because of the underlying reason for the special measure. And, it often is a humanitarian component. So it's interesting how this plays out. I'm glad I'm not the person making these decisions, because it's easy to poke holes in things and to look back with hindsight. But for me, I'd love to see a 75-25% split and let the feds do what they wanted to do with their 25 in whatever way that's focused on super high human capital, and let the provinces keep the people that are in the provinces. So at least the ones that are committed. But hey, I'm an independent kind of guy. So less government is more for me. Okay, let's keep zipping through here. Okay, I don't know if you have a response for Aisha here, Alicia. How long are GCMS notes going to take? It's been 100 days now, still haven't received them. That's an awful long time.
So, Aisha, it really depends on what you asked for. And so, what we found is if you asked simply for those GCMS notes, like the electronic notes, it's normally pretty quick. If you also ask for something else that might have been on a physical file, then it's going to take forever, like very, very, very long. So if you truly only ask for the GCMS notes electronically and nothing else, it's normally pretty quick unless there's something where they have a lot of redactions. So they've got security or background screening questions where they've had to go to a foreign government, and then, or if you have dependents and they have to kind of screen out all the stuff from a privacy perspective for a whole bunch of dependents. So sometimes that takes longer.
Mm-hmm. JM asks this question. Let's see if we can shrink it down just a little bit, squeeze it in here, get a little mix up. So JM says, hey, Mark and Alicia, hope you're well. My son gets his work permit this July, but will expire earlier than our permits due to his passport expiry date. To extend, should it be done on his GC key or mine? So how do you deal with dependents?
Mm-hmm. So, Jam, it really depends on how old your dependent is. So, if they're over the age of 18, I would normally say it should be done through your child's own GC key. If they're still a minor, then you can do it through yours. Most of the time, if they're over the age of 18 and you try to do it through yours, you need like a family member authorization in order to file on an adult's behalf. So, it kind of depends on age.
All right, next question is here from Suvan. He says, sorry, couldn't include everything in the previous question. Hi, I'm also trying for CEC. Current score is 529. Do you think having an express entry and non-express entry will be problematic? And the short answer, Suvan, is no. Ultimately, you're going to have to choose which route you're going to go. But if you have a PR application through the PR portal in the queue, through I don't know, a P&P or whatever it might be, and then you receive an ITA for the express entry, you can have both applications proceeding forward. So you're not restricted. You can't have more than one sponsorship, or undertaking in place at the same time. But in terms of filing applications, you can have that. Now, when it comes to the provinces, if they see that you received an ITA and you're going through an express entry stream in those provinces, like let's say you got a notification of interest and then you submit it, and then lo and behold, there's an ITA before your nomination is issued. A lot of provinces will see, oh, you've got an ITA now, and they'll send out a inquiry saying, okay, what do you want to do? Are you going to decline your ITA and keep going with us? Or are you going to, withdraw your OINP, for instance, application because you already have your ITA? So, yeah. But otherwise, no, I don't. You just want to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Akash says, is a new PCC required on a new passport after the renewal of the passport? Once again, it's this whole concept of passports being linked, the passport number being linked to the document you're uploading. What are your thoughts on that, Alicia?
I mean, ideally, you would have your current passport and everything would be linked to the current passport, but there might be circumstances where you haven't traveled in that country since the issuance of that passport, and you might be able to use an old PCC, but you've got to go through the program guidance on when you can use an older PCC. And if you've physically been back in that country for any period of time, don't play around with the place certificates. Make sure that you get an updated place certificate if there's any sort of doubt about that.
Mm-hmm. This question from Ryan Alex, I'm going to ring the bell. It says, anytime you guys ask this is usually something we'd require a consultation. I need to submit an LOE. Basically, I think is, do I need to submit an LOE if I was working during the last semester while doing my bachelor's in India? We'll need more information, Ryan. I recommend you book a consult and then we can decipher that. Okay, Bavneet says, I have a total of 2 years of work experience in Canada, including 2 months as a sex supervisor. I don't know. I have all of my pay stubs with the job title, T4 slips, and an email confirmation. Unable to get the reference letter now. Oh, yeah, Bavneet, this is one of the challenges. We have a big, long document within the course, once again, the Express Entry Accelerator. When we have records of employment, the records of employment is probably one of my favorite lessons in the whole course, because it has, well, if we just go here, lesson 48, you can see here we have a ton of sample reference letters, but in here we also have instructions on what if I can't get a reference letter. So this document has a bunch of different recommendations and suggestions on what you can do to try to compensate for the lack of a reference letter. But I don't know about you, Alicia. Without a reference letter, you are just asking for refusal. And sometimes people say, look, there's nothing that I can do. Well, then understand there's a significant chance your application is going to get rejected, even despite your best efforts to find alternative evidence. But if you truly have provided evidence to support each of those pieces, well, if it got refused, it says you're supposed to provide a reference letter, but maybe there might be some room to try to challenge it in federal court, but never. I don't know if there's any actual court decision that's challenged that in that way. Everything turns on the facts, Bavneet. So I recommend you book a consult. We can sort it out. Maybe there's some things that, we can do. All right. Obi says, hey, Mark and Alicia, I got my PR. Thanks for the master classes. Obi, congratulations. There's some applause. It really helped me feeling, and I celebrate you. Thank you, Obi. That's so cool. Oh, man, I love when people who've subscribed to the Express Entry course come back and give us a shout out. So, Obi, thanks so much. And you'll have to drop in the masterclass next week and just say hi so I can formally congratulate you, but it will give you another applause there. So cool. And what Obi is talking about is the masterclass component to the courses. I don't know if I have it here, but essentially for each of, for the Express Entry, once you've subscribed to it, every 2 weeks I do a live masterclass where it's kind of more like a Zoom call than this, where you can actually turn on your mic and pull up, turn your video on and we can just have a conversation. The group is always smaller than what we have here, the 100 or 200 people that are watching, and we can dive a lot deeper. So thank you so much. That's so cool. So cool. Okay, let's hit some more super chats here. Okay, love here, amor, famiglia, Bohol says, do caregivers currently have a chance of receiving an invitation? Oh, Alicia, you want to
Yeah.
try that? This is one of the worst managed portfolios in all of immigration. It's just been a
Uh,
consistent state of just disarray.
So if you go to the IRCC page and you look at caregivers, you will see a string of previous programs, right? So there have been like 4 or 5 previous caregiver programs that started, that shut down, that got changed. There are quotas in terms of which category you're going under. There's not very many allocation spots. The program is completely closed for this year. There's nobody else that they're letting in. It's
Check this out, Alicia. This is what Alicia was just saying here. Okay, so we go
yeah.
here. Okay, hey, here's immigration home care worker, immigration pilots, generally speaking, and then working temporarily as a home care worker. That's all nice. Now here's the actual pilot. Closed
Yeah.
June
Yeah.
17th. Live-in caregiver program closed December 2014. Caring for children pilot closed. Caring for people with high medical needs closed. Interim pathway for caregivers closed. So you can see this. It's just it's just one failure after another with these programs.
And it's not necessarily a failure, it's that these programs were more susceptible to abuse than many others. And so there were lots of circumstances where caregivers would come as living caregivers. Families would farm them out to other families. They would take their passports. They would have them in conditions inside their house that were not safe. It became a minefield, and so immigration has really tightened up those programs. It's not very likely that you're going to be able to find a pathway to PR under a caregiver program unless they open up a new program for next year. We don't know what that will look like. It is difficult. You still need to have an employer with a valid LMIA if you're working as a caregiver. Um, this is one that is really problematic, and I don't think there is a good chance because these programs are so niche and there are quotas that are filled almost instantly.
Interesting. I was just looking here. I just did a quick little search just to see if I could find it's my little conversation with CBC Radio. Let's see here. I got to get up to speed, make sure I got the right one. Here. Sorry, this is what I'm talking about. This is the next super chat. I'm already, as you're wrapping that one up, I was thinking about the next one. He said, "Hey guys, just jumping into the live. Do you believe more drastic immigration and temporary foreign worker changes are coming? I'm concerned with Poilievre's demands to scrap the program." So I just did just a little search to see if I could figure out where, and CBC better not get me in trouble because I'm showing my own information here. But anyways, yeah, our temporary foreign workers taking young Canadian jobs. Here's what experts think. So this was the thing. Poilievre and Ebby said scrap the whole thing, which is not the approach. It's not correct, right? There's a middle ground. If there's no checks and balances and companies are just lying and not, their representatives are telling them to ignore all genuine candidates and it's just a fraud, then yeah, that stuff should be scrapped. But the program has always served a purpose. And so I was just looking through here and he's pulled stuff out of the CBC radios to the House. So maybe that's where I got all the hate mail from was from this, as opposed to people actually reading. But the reality is, when it comes to the temporary foreign worker program, the whole thing is designed, right, you guys, to be a check. It's to be checked by the requirements.
It's a labor market impact analysis.
Yeah,
That is the title. And so in
yeah,
order to be able to go through that program, employers have to be able to show that they've tested the labor market and they cannot find Canadian workers. And it is all tied to the fact that there's refusal to process for low wage workers who are in unemployment zones that are higher than 6%. So already there's a labor market test built in. And not only that, there are wage requirements built in. So in order to hire a temporary foreign worker under either the high wage or the low wage program, you have to basically be paying them more than you would be paying any other Canadian. And so there was a change in the pay scale. And so this happened. And in addition to what normally had to be the median wage, there's an uplift. And so to even be able to think about filing an LMIA application, you have to be paying way more than you would pay a local worker. And so there's a huge disincentive built in for employers to even use the temporary foreign worker program. And not only that, IRCC took away points for arranged employment. And so there's less incentive for people to abuse the program because there's no benefit on your express entry score if you're looking at CRS points for it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. And as we go through here, I just want to show you this. I'm always curious what they pull out here. But this is what I indicated, that it's required that they prove prevailing wage rate. So then the response is, come on, Mark, they're all lying and cheating and scamming. And I work for this company and they just ignored it, or they said they're going to pay this and then they make the people pay cash back. Okay, well, all of that's fair. That's fine. But that's an enforcement problem. It's, that's a problem on those who are actually adjudicating the system. And if there is fraud, there needs to be mechanisms put in place for program integrity that captures that deals with it. It doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. And what I said was legitimately, because we know there are just recently, Alicia, Lethbridge climbed over 6. So I think we're 6.7 now, unemployment rates. So employers down here are not going to be able to file an LMIA once they get the new unemployment rates up. So unemployment is climbing. And it's not the temporary foreign worker program that's causing it. And I said, it's designed to not put downward pressure on wages. I said the real challenge lies with international students who can obtain open work permits after graduation that can be valid for up to 3 years. This is not, I hate when they pull pieces out. This is not to blame international students who are following the rules. They're doing everything that they need to do. They spend thousands and thousands of dollars for education and then an opportunity to work after they graduate, just like my son who's on an OPT down in the US, right? And so I said, if you can have someone who says, yes, I will work as a manager of your restaurant and I will for minimum wage, well, then employers will pay minimum wage. There's no check and balance on it. That is what I was getting to, because people are vulnerable. These international students are just as vulnerable. And so when you have them and they're working in places where the employer says, sure, I've got a job for you, but I'm only going to pay you $15 an hour. And because you're on an open work permit, normally that's an entry level wage, but I'm just going to keep adding to your responsibilities to the point that you're running my restaurant. And these are I'm not giving an example off the top of my head, right? This is just purely for explanatory purposes. But when you have these types of situations, then it does put downward pressure on wages if you have people that are willing to work for nothing. And
but let's also keep this all in context. I don't think in any way, shape, or form you're blaming open work permit holders
zero,
for
none.
lack of jobs.
No,
because
no.
let's keep this in context. We are talking about less than 1% of our workforce.
Yes.
So this is
Yes. But Alicia, the 1% of our workforce the percentage of our workforce that is being disproportionately harmed is people looking to take entry-level positions, right? So when you look at the whole labor market and you look at people that are working in experienced positions that require high levels of education or years of work experience, they're not being affected by this. So I also don't like that kind of a representation either, because it's our young people that are looking for their first jobs in the labor market that are the issue. That's where the people that are being disproportionately harmed. But I'm not saying that it's international students. It's not their fault. Right. It's not. Right. They will, and like you, if it's a job, they need the experience. People in my day volunteered. They worked for free for places to get work experience so that they could get jobs. So that's not the issue. But when you're looking at where like it's the people who are making decisions at the top that are responsible for the situation we're in right now, not the people who are legitimately trying to follow the rules and, take advantage of the opportunities that have been presented them. So,
And I don't want to in any way, shape, or form blame this all on immigration, right? There are so
yes.
many economic factors, international factors. There are a whole bunch of production issues. There are investment issues. There are finance issues. There are trade issues right now going on. There are tariff issues. There are a whole bunch of things going on. So I don't think it's fair to blame this on immigration.
No, no, it's one piece of the whole puzzle. One piece. All right. Let's go to Dorwin here. Dorwin says, Mark and Alicia. Actually, I'm going to slip over here, Dorwin. There's Dorwin's. So Dorwin says, good day. Would the main applicant PR application in the future be affected if the spouse worked without proper authorization by using a dummy work permit application? Thank you. God bless. Okay, Dorwin, this is 100% one of these ones. And I'll just maybe offer just a quick thought on this, and then I'll turn it over to you, Alicia, for your thoughts. But when you say, would the main applicant's PR application in the future be affected? So I'm assuming you haven't submitted anything at this stage. If the spouse worked without proper authorization, well, if they had a valid work permit and they submitted one of these dummy work permit extensions, technically, they are still working under valid authorization if it's a proper filed application where they're benefiting from maintained status. And so I don't know really, Dorman, specifically what the issue is, but what do you have anything else to address? Like this is one of these ones, Dorwin, so I recommend that you book a consult.
Yeah, Doran, we don't understand what you mean by without proper authorization and then
Yeah.
say a dummy work permit application, because sometimes you can have filed a placeholder application that you knew was going to get refused, but that doesn't mean that you worked without authorization necessarily. If you worked without authorization, you do need to disclose that, because that's one of the statutory declaration questions when you're filling out your forms. Did you ever work without authorization? And you have to be honest. And if you did, you need to disclose it and explain. Otherwise, they can say you misrepresented or your spouse misrepresented in their forms because they failed to disclose something. And that's misrep is potentially a 5-year bar. So we need to talk to you more about exactly what went on in order to give you some legal advice.
All right. I think we're just about at the end. And there are a lot of people, trust me, when you guys post your comments, we try to choose the ones that are going to be the most beneficial to everyone tuning in. So I think we're going to wrap it up there for today. We'll be back again next Wednesday. I think Igor should be back. I think. Are you still here, Alicia? Or are you slipping away next week? I can't remember.
I'm gone. I'm gonna go backcountry hiking next week.
Good for you. Awesome. So what we'll do going forward, Igor will be back to join me here. Let's see if we can get that one off. There we go. Where we'll do another live Q&A, but stay tuned for the podcast episode that we're going to release here. Should come out in the next couple days, episode 171. And if you have not yet slid over and checked out Alicia's blog on open work permits in the context of a spousal sponsorship application, so this isn't the spousal open work permit, who's accompanying a temporary resident. This is those who are the subject of spousal sponsorship, but there's some really important nuances that you need to pay attention to. That phenomenal article, really succinct, something that can cut right to the answers that you're looking for most, and to help point out the problem areas that we're seeing right now when people are filing these. So pay attention to that. And for the rest of you who are connected in, we really appreciate you guys being here with us. These live Q&As are something that we really enjoy. And, the immigration is really challenging right now, and it causes a lot of heartache to a lot of people. And Alicia and I as well. We got into this business in the early days when immigration was a wonderful area to practice in, where, we could go through, and usually most things we could find a way to resolve problems for people. And it was just a wonderful practice. And not that it's just a whole lot more stressful now, both from the standpoint of wondering what our government's doing with it next, to the global pressures on our country generally, to the individual lives of the people that we meet with every single day. And it breaks our heart to see people who've sacrificed so much to be here, who've done nothing wrong. They've tried to follow the rules, who have to, reconcile the fact that they're probably going to have to go home. And then they tell us about 4 or 5 other people who maybe weren't as diligent in trying to follow the rules, who have found themselves in a position of permanent residence. And it's hard because at the end of the day, as lawyers, we do the very, very best we can to help you. And sometimes there isn't anything that we can do to fix the situation, which is the hard part. But we're here. We're supporting you in every way that we can, and hopefully you find these live Q&As useful. All right. Any last comments, Alicia?
No, I think it's good that people are being strategic. I think it's fantastic. I've had a number of consults with people who said, I've been watching your live streams for years and I follow you guys on podcasts, and it's really helpful. And so we love to hear that. It makes a difference to know that we're putting a message out there that is resonating, that is helpful for people.